Says, oh, okay, there we go. Okay, we are live on YouTube. I'm going to share this link on Twitter. Oh, okay, there we go. Okay, we are live on YouTube. I'm going to share this link on Twitter. Okay, almost ready. Okay. Now I'll share my screen. Today we're going to work on SaturnCI, my CI platform that Ryan and Sanjit, I know that at least you guys know about. Puneeth, I don't know if you know about this tool I'm working on, SaturnCI, but it's a CI platform. And I'll share my screen and share what I'm going to work on today.
Sure.
Okay. So here is the product. On the left here, we have all of our test runs, and on the right, we have the log output. One thing that's been kind of annoying me a little bit is that when I switch between tabs, for example, it's quite sluggish. And then when I switch to a different build, that's quite sluggish as well. So I want to improve the performance. I don't consider this premature optimization because this isn't for scale. This is just for my own benefit. Even if I'm the only person ever using this, it's already slower than I want it to be. And so I'm not doing this in anticipation of something. I'm doing this to meet current needs. Okay, so how do we make this faster? I have no idea. So let's dig in. So this is the builds controller. So let's open that. Okay, it's builds show to be precise. And so let's see where we're at right now. Let's open up the network tab and see how long it takes to load a page. So if I just hit refresh, 1.33 seconds. That's a lot. Okay. And then if I click a different tab, 1.18 seconds, 1.34 seconds. So it seems to be always over a second. So that's pretty bad. And I'm going to try something just out of curiosity. I'm going to delete everything from the show action, and I'm going to open up the show template and delete everything from there. And then I'm going to see how long it takes to load. So the initial load now takes 44 milliseconds. Okay. And then what if I keep everything in the controller, but keep the show blank? 214 milliseconds. Okay. Oh, but then every subsequent time it takes way, way less. Okay. So the stuff in here, aside from the initial load, doesn't seem to be adding significant time. And I'm curious, what if we just keep the list and that's all? Okay. Even just the list is over a second. So that tells me that I can focus in that area and expect to see, expect to be able to make some improvements. What about just the show portion? Okay. That's like 150, 160 milliseconds. Okay, it looks like list is the place to focus. So as you can tell, I was trying to kind of use a process of elimination to see where the bottlenecks are. Okay, and I will continue to do the same thing. Now I think I want to identify like the biggest bottleneck. If I take that stuff away, where does that put us? Okay, we're under 200 milliseconds, so it must be somewhere in here. So let me look more closely at these. We have the build commit message. That seems unlikely to be adding a lot of time. Author name, created at, branch name, hash, status. Weird. None of that stuff seems like it should be adding a lot of time, but apparently it is. Yeah, it's back up over a second now.
How many
Interesting.
how many builds do you have in the list?
It's a good question. Not that many, like maybe a dozen or so.
Where in the how many are you loaded? Well, I guess you tested the controller, so you're already loading a small number of those.
Yeah, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna kill that and those and this and this. Interesting, it's still over a second. Well, now it's slightly below, but still pretty high. Oh, maybe it's status. Let's see. Okay, so status is pretty expensive. All right, so let's focus there first. Okay, so here's the thing about status. Once the build has either passed or failed, the status never changes again. So that's an easy thing to cache. Um, and in fact, once the once the build passes or fails, nothing about the build ever changes again. So we can cache the whole thing. So it's basically like as long as the build is not currently running, we can cache it. Okay, build show. Okay, so we're rendering list. I think before I attempt any caching, I want to split this. So there's the list page, and then there's like a list item page or a list item template. Okay, so let's go from the beginning of the LI to the end of the LI. Okay, and instead of using this build instance variable, I'm going to pass build as a local so that it's clear where that's coming from. Ooh, that's not great. That's build equals build. Oh, I see. Hmm. Okay, well, never mind about that particular part then. I'm just going to use the instance variable. Maybe I'll change that in a minute. Okay, I did something wrong.
You still need to pass the local version of build.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Thanks for that.
Mhm.
There we go. Okay, I'll run my tests. Tests take a little longer now. 7 seconds and change. Okay. Um, okay. I'm gonna say refactored templates. And now that I pushed, we should see a new build getting kicked off. Uh-huh. Okay. I'm gonna open build list. Now, here's something kind of funny. I want to either cache the build or not cache it, depending on the status. But the status is expensive. So it's like, well, maybe I'm thinking too far ahead. Okay. Build list item. So I'm going to go to ChatGPT, paste in this template and this template and the build model as well. And I want to say after a build is finished running, it never changes. So I want to cache everything in the builds list item partial if the build's status is anything but running. Let's see what it says about that. Okay, it's asking me some questions. Are you looking to implement fragment caching at the level of build, blah, blah, blah? Oh, okay. It's proposing an implementation here. Hmm. You know what? I'm just gonna try something for starters. I'm gonna
I was gonna
do,
say it's interesting that its solution sort of ignores your comment of only when it's running, but I'm not actually
yeah,
sure it matters because the cache will invalidate when the status changes.
let's see what happens. I don't know if that's even gonna work. Okay. Still takes over a second, but I don't know if I can do the cache outside like this. Maybe I have to do it inside of here. Yeah. Rails, partial caching. I think it's actually called view caching. Page caching. Okay. Oh, okay. So this is much more like the first way I did it. But when I do this, it doesn't seem to actually have any effect. So let's see if we can figure out why that is.
Sure, you have caching enabled.
I'm not sure. By
There you
default,
go.
caching is disabled. Okay. Run Rails dev cache to toggle caching. Okay. Okay, I can't see that because of the zoom window.
You're
Okay,
good.
development. Yeah, okay.
There you go.
Yep, okay. So that's obviously good, but it's also bad because when this build finishes, it'll just be stuck in running and it won't say passed like it should.
But if you take the ChatGPT suggestion, that should address that.
Yeah, but before I do that, I'm going to do this. So if I run RSpec, I expect all the tests to pass. I want to add a test that fails when the caching is wrong and passes when the caching is right. Okay, add caching. Um, and then I want to add a test for the build status. My like autocomplete is not working anymore. That's weird. That is so weird.
I feel like this happened a couple weeks ago too, didn't
It did, yeah.
it? Yeah.
I'm gonna try something. I'm gonna go out of this and okay. Okay. Maybe that fixed it. Yeah, okay. Um, so I'm gonna create one called build status spec. I'm gonna run that even though there's nothing in it. I'm gonna do this login thing. I think I want to say build goes from running to finished. I'll say to passed. I'm gonna run just that much. Um, I'm gonna expect the page to have running, but I haven't explicitly set the status of the build. So let's do that. So how does a build get a running status? Oh, it looks like that's the default basically. Okay. Okay. And then I will make it so all the jobs of the build have passed. Okay. I'm gonna create a build. No, I'm gonna create a job, sorry. Create job where the status is passed. Where does a job get its status? Okay. The test report doesn't include failed, but maybe we don't want to deal with that detail. Maybe we just want to stub the job status method so it returns passed. Okay. Allow job to receive status and return past. Okay. Now we'll do this again. If I did everything right, which who knows if I did, then this test should fail. Okay. Expected to find past and didn't. Let me check something. Um, build show. No, I want to build list. I want to build list HTML. Yeah. So what if I go back to no caching? Does this test pass? Because that's what should happen. It does not pass. Okay. Let's find out why it doesn't pass. Because if this doesn't pass, then I know something's wrong with the test. And I don't want to try to make the test pass if the test isn't even valid. Okay, so it still says running. Let's dig into this a little bit. If we do build.status, I bet we just get running still. Job.status, what's that? Mm-hmm. Okay. Oh, we didn't connect the job to the build. That's one problem at least. Okay, it still says running. At least the same build now. Build.status, running. Uh-huh. Okay, that's not terribly shocking. Because I think, build.jobs, build.jobs, dot map, status. Yeah, that's interesting. Build.jobs dot first. No, build.jobs dot map ID, job.id. So it's the same job, but when I do build.jobs.map status, I get running instead of past. Even if I do job.status, we get past. Um, so it must not be like actually the same object. Um, it's like a different memory location or whatever. I have, well, here's a question. Why don't I just change the build status itself? Um, yeah, let's do that and see what happens. Okay, that still failed, which is interesting. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. I meant to do this. Build.status. It says past here, but it seems to be that here it says running. I'm guessing it's the same memory location issue. Let's do something to be a little bit more sure. Let's put a binding.pry here. Oops. Okay, so this is the first time it's hitting it. We can ignore that. Now here's the second time. Build.status running. Build that status, passed. Yeah. So even though we stub it in the test, it's apparently not the same object in memory in the browser, and so our stubbing has no effect. All right. Well, let's think of a different way to do this. One way would be to just create this test report. Maybe I'll do that. The test report is just an attribute on job, is that right? Yeah, okay. Okay, so let's do this. Okay, that passed. And so if I go here and reintroduce the caching, I would expect that it fails. But it passes. Interesting. Oh, it probably passes because that was, well, no, I was going to say because it's the first time we visited that page, but it's not. It's the second. Maybe caching is not turned on in the test environment. Action mailer. Okay. Okay. Development environment. Action controller perform caching. Hmm. Okay, I'm gonna try that. But there's no perform caching in here. Oh, there is. Okay. Stable caching. I'm gonna get rid of that. Perform caching. True. Okay, it still passes, which means either that caching isn't really turned on. Oh, cache store equals null store. That doesn't seem right. Okay, I'm gonna do this. How can I turn on caching in the test environment? Memory store. Okay. Oh, I see now that Rob has been chatting away in the chat. I didn't even notice. Yeah. Sorry, Rob. I see your comments now, but too late. Okay. Let's see what happens now. Okay, it fails now. And just as a sanity check, if I take away the caching, it passes. Okay. Yep. All right. So that is all as it should be.
Might want to update the line 12, your it description.
Oh, thanks. It shows the updated, shows the most current status. Okay. So we need to make it so it busts the cache when the status changes. And I guess this was ChatGPT's suggestion, right? Okay. So that makes the test pass. But now, if we check the performance, does that give us much of an improvement? Not really.
Oh, 50%. I mean,
I'm not sure though,
well, it went from
because
1.4 seconds to what was that? I couldn't see it. You were going so fast. It was 500 or 800? 800. So, I mean, it's almost half. I mean,
but
it's not like perfect, but it was an improvement.
if we go to the main branch and reload repeatedly. Oh yeah, okay. No, you're right. Okay. Okay, so I'll take that. Just gonna check and make sure there's nothing I'm committing that I didn't mean to commit. Okay. Um, add add caching. Is that what I did? No, add caching is what I did last time. Add cache busting. Okay, but it'd be nice to make it even faster. This is good, but there's a problem. The status method is expensive. What can I do? Well, here's an idea. I could add some kind of like finished at timestamp or something like that. And if the finished at timestamp is present, well, I could add finished at and just go off of the finished at presence instead of the status. Maybe I'll do that. Make sure I don't already have something like that. Okay. I'm thinking, yeah. Yeah, let's do that. And I can actually do that as a separate unit of work. So I'm going to go back to the main branch, Rails generate migration, add finished at to builds, finished at timestamp. Okay, that looks good. Precision nil, that's interesting. I don't recall ever having seen that before. Okay, I'm actually gonna date time. Hmm, yeah, that is weird to me. Anyway, I'm not too worried about that. Add builds dot finished at. Hang on a second. A build has zero or more jobs. It might be complicated. Yeah, sorry. I'm not going to do this. Okay, Rails DB rollback. I'm going to do it slightly differently, and it'll make sense why in a second, I think. Rails generate migration, add finished at to jobs. Okay. Okay. Add jobs dot finished at. Okay, so now when a job finishes, I can mark it finished. How do I know when a job is finished? I might have to just pull it. I didn't realize. Hmm. Maybe this is even more complicated than necessary.
Well, what are you trying to do? I've sort of lost where you're going with this. Um,
Well, that's
like,
understandable
yes,
because I didn't really explain it.
well, the build is expensive, or the status is expensive. Getting the status of the build is expensive, but we cached that, so it's only expensive the first time. So, what are you hoping to accomplish by further optimizing the retrieval of the status?
I think you might be mistaken that it's only expensive the first time. So first, let me undo this. Rails DB rollback. And then I'm gonna revert this. Okay, and then I'm gonna go back to that other branch, build list. So it's using build.status to decide whether to cache each item or
Right,
not.
and that's the expensive call.
Yeah, because
Uh,
the status call is cached inside of here, but there's a second status call, and I
yeah, it has
believe
to
this
check
gets
it every
called
time.
every time. Yeah. But I
Right,
think
so you were
there's,
trying to cache, basically, do a counter, similar to a counter cache, right? Just storing it on the model itself.
yeah, but I think there's even a simpler way to do it. So the job's status goes off of the test report. So we can go by the test report to deduce whether the job is finished. So it's like, oh, no, it's not that simple, is it?
Oh, does it matter if it's passed or failed to
No,
know that it's finished?
it doesn't matter, but it's failed if the test report is an empty string, then it's still running. Oh, okay.
So just check if it's not an empty string.
Yeah. Um, um, greater, I don't know, not equal to 0. Okay. And then on build, we can do the same thing. Jobs dot all. I think you can do that, but I'm actually not seeing why that would be any cheaper. It is a little clearer. Yeah, it's not any cheaper, or if it is, it's like negligible. Hmm. I'm gonna do an experiment real quick. What if I just return true? Yeah, it's significantly faster if I just return true.
Is there is there any sort of eager loading that needs to happen for jobs that isn't happening?
Oh, that might be a good idea. Um, okay, let's explore that idea. So I'm gonna get rid of my finished idea because I think that was not a good idea in the first place, at least with regard to performance.
Might be a better
Eager
name,
loading. Yeah, it might be a better name. So,
but separate concern.
right. Okay, eager loading, you said. Build controller. Okay. How do I eager load the build's jobs?
The job build has many jobs,
Yeah,
so just I think it just includes job on the
like that?
yeah, I don't know if you can do that with a finder though.
I'll just do this. How can I eager load the build's jobs? Oh, okay.
Do it
You had it
before.
right. It was
I
just different order.
always get that one backwards.
Okay, let's see if that has any effect.
That got worse.
Yeah, that's funny. Okay, I had asked it something about this earlier, and it had a suggestion, and I like I don't think I read it. I don't think I read it. Use low-level caching for status, pre-compute and store status. Hmm. That's an interesting idea, but I
Never
don't
been a
know if
fan
that.
of low level caching.
Sorry, what's that?
So I'm not a huge fan of the low level caching because I feel like it's hard, like you end up putting it, I don't know. That's
I feel
some,
like
maybe it's just the way I've implemented it in the past, but it sort of it I don't know how to articulate it.
Well, I feel like the
So,
low-level caching doesn't solve the problem, it just moves it.
right. Like you could do the same fragment caching should theoretically do the same thing.
Oh, this is an
Although
interesting. Oh, go ahead.
now I was going to say now that I say that, that's not actually true because in the fragment cache, you need to use status as the cache key, but in low level caching, you don't. So that might actually solve your problem.
Well, I just had an idea, Ryan. But wait, sorry, say what you said again because I distracted myself.
Well, I'm not sure this is 100% accurate, but my hypothesis is that since you don't need to use, if you use low level caching, you wouldn't need build.status in the cache key, which is the expensive part of the cache check.
Hmm.
So if you use low level caching, you eliminate that call. You only do it once.
Yeah, but then the cached the low level cache status still needs to know how to bust its cache somehow.
or you
Hmm.
only set it when once it hits finished state because you said it never changes afterwards.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay. Let me try to think more clearly. How do we know when a build is finished?
Is that different than what we did in that last branch that we threw away?
Um, with the finished at timestamp?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, because well, it's just a different question. Like the finished at timestamp is a recording of when the build finished. I'm asking like a little bit upstream of that. How do we know when the build got finished so we can populate that timestamp with something? Or just how do we know in general, regardless of the timestamp, like how do we know when a build is finished? Oh, okay. There's this test suite finished job event. Interesting. Okay. So it's like when we get to test suite finished, hmm, okay. But it's a little bit complicated because like there can be any number of jobs per build because the jobs exist for parallelization. There can be any number of jobs and they need to all be finished. One thing we could do to avoid needing to poll is every time a job finishes, we could see if all the jobs are finished, and if they are, then we can mark the build as finished. That seems okay. Okay, job events. Yeah, okay. Okay. When a job gets marked finished, see if all the jobs are finished, and if they are, mark the build finished. That seems viable. What do you think so, Ryan?
Um, yeah, I mean, it sounds logical.
Okay. Okay. So I'm going to do this. So I could say like if the job event type is finished, then check and see if all the jobs are finished. But I don't want to pollute this job events controller because the job events controller is very general purpose. I think what I want to do is create a new controller called hmm, test
I mean,
suite.
could you, I
Uh,
know this probably doesn't have a good separation of concerns, but could you just do it as a callback on job?
um, what would that callback be?
Um, it would be like job dot build dot jobs dot dot all question mark finished, and then update if it is,
And I suppose we'd want to have a conditional in there to see whether the
unless it's already
update.
finished.
Well, because we only want to do it on the test suite finished. We only want to do it on the setting of a test suite finished event, right?
Yeah, I was just trying to think of a quick way to test if this is the right path versus trying to conceptualize how we want it to
Yeah, I think I see what you're saying.
final
Like,
version, right? Like the quick and dirty is like, will this even work before we worry about how to organize it properly?
yeah, maybe that's the right way. I see a comment in the chat on YouTube I'd recommend to change the status to simple enum or string. Instead of calculating every time, let the jobs change the status, like in job model after update, update status and changed. I don't like that though, because then it gets denormalized. And I'm fine with having an additional denormalized value, but I'd rather the source data be normalized.
Can
Because
you
if we have a
explain that
status go ahead,
further?
Brian.
I say, can you just elaborate on that a little bit more? Because I feel like I do that a lot, is where I just, the job or the, webhook or whatever is responsible for updating the status at the end of the run.
Yeah, whenever there's a status value that just gets overwritten every time the status changes, then history gets lost. And if there's like five statuses and it goes through all five, then you don't know when it got set to the first four statuses. And I found that that can be hard to do forensics on and troubleshoot, diagnose problems and all that stuff.
So that makes sense. I'm missing where the history is saved in this version of it.
Yeah, so a job has any number of job events. And so,
Oh, I see.
yeah.
Okay.
So I think I'm going to try this because I think it'll be pretty cheap. Um, I'm going to create a new controller called Test Suite Finished Events. Test Suite Finished Events. Okay. So I'm going to start with a test. Call it Test Suite Finished Events. Okay. Make this test suite finished just so it makes sense. I'm going to run this. And of course, I expect it not to pass. But it did pass because I sent it to the wrong path. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, that just now was a great illustration of why we do the red green refactor steps. Why do we do the red step is to test the validity of the test. I tested the validity of the test just now, and it turns out my test was not valid. And then I updated it, and now we can see that the test is now valid. Job events, test suite finished events. Part of the reason I bring that up is because those false positives happen a lot more than one might think. Okay, so it's saying uninitialized, saying the controller's not there. Job event controller, test suite events controller, test suite finished events controller. Okay, let's see what happens now. Okay, then I'm gonna change this. I shouldn't have to specify the type. Let's change that actually. No params. Okay, I'll run all the tests also. Oh yeah, and let me go back to that shell script there. Does API request require? I don't think so. Okay. Okay. See you later, Sanjit. Thanks for coming. Okay, so what did I just do? We added test suite finished events controller. Oh, and I got a couple trailing spaces somehow. So let's address that. Test suite finished events. Test suite finished events controller. Oh, I didn't mean to put it on this branch. Um, oh well, that's not the worst thing in the world. I'll just keep working on this branch. Um, okay, so I have this test suite finished events controller. We want to make it so that when it does that, it checks to see if all the jobs are finished. Okay, I want to start with the test. Um, okay, if all the builds jobs are finished, then it sets the builds finished at. So we need to bring back the build finished at thing. Oh, that was on main, wasn't it? Oh, did I never commit that? Okay. Okay, we'll just do it over. Okay. Okay. Add builds dot finished at. Okay, thanks for coming, Ryan. See you later. Okay, let's see. We have builds finished at. Okay. Now I want to go to spec. I want to go to this one. And I want to say when all the jobs are finished, then it sets the build finished at value. Okay. Context. All the jobs have finished. It sets the builds finished at value. Okay. So we'll do expect job dot build dot finished at not to be nil. We run this, and I'm guessing, of course, that this will not pass. Correct. Okay. So this job also doesn't have any sibling jobs. So let's give it one. Oh, and we also have to hit the API. So let's do that. I'm, of course, still expecting this not to pass. Uh-huh. Okay, so let's do this before do create job build job.build, and we need it to have been finished, meaning it has that finished at event. So let's do this. Let's go to spec job spec. Let's create a new method called finished. Context. It has a test suite finished event. It returns true. And then the other one, of course, will be it does not have, and it returns false. Expect job to be finished. Expect job not to be finished. And I expect this not to just fail, but to give an error. Yep. Okay, so we'll do def finished, and it'll return nothing. Yep. Okay. So we're gonna say, what do we do? Job events. Oh yeah, I have to create it in the test. Whoops. Job events controller. Okay. Test suite finished. Job events dot map type dot include test suite finished. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to copy this. Okay. Now let's see what we get. Okay. Then what if we run both of these? Okay. All right. So that takes care of the finished method. Okay. So we want this job to be finished. We want this job to be finished. So let's do this. Hmm. Okay. So here's a sibling job that is finished. And I expect this to still fail. We get an error. We need an order index for this job. Order index, we'll give it an index of 2 because that first one is probably 1. Okay, and it's still nil. All right, so now we need to add something to the API that sets finished at. Okay. Okay, so we want to say if all the sibling jobs are finished, then set the build to finished. I'm going to say if sibling jobs finished job dot build dot update finished at time dot zone dot now. Okay, and I'm going to run this knowing that we'll get an error because sibling jobs finished does not exist. And then we can run that again. It'll fail again, but probably for a different reason. Oh, forgot the question mark. Okay. Now we can say job.builds dot jobs dot all finished. Maybe that'll work. Let's see. Apparently not. Undefined method build. Oh, job.build. Okay, that's interesting. So does it think all the sibling jobs are finished or not? Okay, it apparently does think they're finished, but finished at is still nil. Maybe I need to reload the job. Okay. And just to make sure I'm not crazy, I will comment this line out and verify that the test fails. Uh-huh. And might this be clear if instead I say if job.build.all jobs finished? I think so. Whoops. If all jobs finished, job.build. And you know what? Why even create a separate method? Let's just do that. Okay, I did something wrong. Okay, great. Let's take a look at what we did here. We can make it so builds.finished at gets populated. I think we want to add one more test. Test finished events. We want to say when not all the jobs have finished. So we'll just not create any events for this one. And we will expect it to be nil. Okay. I expected that one to pass. Okay, add test. And then there's one more thing I actually need to do. Test suite finished. Yeah, so I want to put this stuff in a transaction. Active record base that transaction due. There we go. Transaction transaction. Okay. Okay. So now I think we can go based on finished at rather than status. Um, build list HTML. Finished at. Ha. All right, that's so much cheaper to check finished at instead of status. But let's run the tests and see if they all still pass. You know, we had that one test that checks that the status gets updated. Okay, it looks like it fails, but maybe our test is wrong now. Yeah, we don't want to do this. We want to do like build.update, finish stack, time.zone.now. That still didn't work for some reason. Interesting. Okay. Oh, the status didn't actually change. Yeah. Let's see what happens now. Okay. Okay, great. Okay, change cache key from status to finished at. Okay. And I do want to manually test this too by verifying that when these tests finish, the status does get updated to passed, assuming that these test suites pass. So that'll take a few minutes. Um, in the meantime, I'm going to check and see if there's anybody still with me on Zoom. I can't see.
Yes, I'm
Oh, hey there. Sorry, I can't see how to get back there. But anyway, Puneet, I think it's just you and me, at least in Zoom. And then there's a couple people watching us on YouTube. But we have to wait just a few minutes to see what happens after these test suites finish. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to go to DigitalOcean and look at my droplets. So there are 3 droplets currently, and there are 3 builds in progress. So, so that all checks out. Once one of these droplets goes away, oh, there we go. The droplet went away. So I would expect that one of these should get changed to passed if everything works right. But who knows if everything works right? Oh, wow. Okay. I'm surprised. Oh, actually, I'm not surprised that two, because for every build, there's 2 jobs. So that makes sense. Okay. So again, if I just refresh repeatedly, it's under 200 milliseconds each time. If I click around on here, oh, nice. That is so much faster. I go to all. So when I click around, yeah, that's like 100 milliseconds. Well, below 200 at least. So that's really nice. If I go back to the main branch and I click around, it is just so sluggish. But then if I go back to this other branch, it feels almost instantaneous. That's nice. And then what about switching among builds? Yeah, that's so nice. Okay. Well, I'm happy about that. So I'm gonna merge this and I'll push that. Okay. And I'll be interested to see if that passes. I'd be very surprised if not. Um, but we're not going to wait for that. I'll check that on my own time later. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. We're close to the end. I'm going to sign off in just a second, but a couple things before we go. One is that I want to let everybody know that I make my living as a consultant and I mainly help people with testing. That's what I do for my work. So I'm just letting you know that that's what I do. I'm available if people want to get help with testing from me. By the way, I want to make a technical comment about what we did earlier. One of the questions I see commonly is how do I test features that involve caching? Notice that our test around that caching didn't speak in terms of the caching, it just spoke in terms of what should happen when we visit the build page and then the build finishes and we visit the build page again, we expect the status to update. We didn't say anything about the caching because that's not relevant. That's just an implementation detail. Um, but notice how if we change the caching, that changed whether the test passed or failed. So it did cover the caching, even though it didn't speak in terms of the caching. that's a significant point. Anyway, that's one of the things I wanted to say. Another thing is that I am tentatively planning a trip to France for April. I'm working on putting on a workshop in Paris on April 27th. If I can sell enough tickets, then I'm going to go. If I can't, then I won't. But you can find that event on Eventbrite. Um, I'll I'll put a link somewhere, but it's I'll put a link in the comments or on the notes on this YouTube video. But again, it's April 27th. It's going to be a one-day Rails testing workshop. The idea is you can come and bring your laptop and bring your tests or bring your project that doesn't have tests, and we'll put it up on the screen and we'll do some pair programming, and we'll do that with several people throughout the day. It'll be a full day workshop. And then at the end of the day, when we're done, we'll all go out for some food and drinks and hang out and talk about testing or talk about whatever. Anyway, April 27th, Paris, just getting the word out about that. All right. Thank you, live YouTube viewers watching this. Thank you, Puneeth. I will see you guys later.
Yeah, thank you, Jason.